Hey everybody, welcome back to GR Research, where we've got something interesting for you guys today. I know we have done a ton of Klipsch upgrades because people just keep sending us Klipsch speakers, and starting to think that maybe Klipsch is really watching those upgrades, because there was a common problem with a lot of them where the crossover that they put in the speakers just weren't allowing the drivers to reach each other very well, and they weren't in phase. So there was a phase problem, and there were quite a few speakers that had big holes in the response. Particularly the Klipsch RP-600, it had quite an issue there where the drivers just weren't in phase and they didn't reach each other well. And it created quite a hole in the response, especially as you moved vertically up, vertical off axis. The hole got pretty deep. So Klipsch has come out with the new Klipsch RP-600M version 2. So let's take a look at version 2. And we didn't get this one from a customer send-in. One of my employees, Hobbs, ordered this pair, and we're going to do something a little more extensive with this pair than what we normally do when we design an upgrade. So first, let's look at the construction of it. It's kind of the same as it's been. I think there is a brace running through it here vertically, which is a little bit better, and it's slightly bigger than it was. Also, we noted the bonding posts on the back, instead of being a cheesy plastic cup, now it's got a little plate there, and instead of plastic cups on the bonding posts, there are little aluminum anodized ones, which look a little better, and instead of that little piece of tin jumpering across, they've actually got little jumpers that are made with spade connectors there, connecting the tweeter and the woofer. And you'd think, oh, well, they've really improved things there. But if you reach into the inside with a magnet, you can tell that these are held in place with a steel nut. It's like, ugh. Guys, it's like you get so close and you spend so much making things look pretty, and then you skimp out in areas where it's negatively going to affect the sound. Anytime you've got ferromagnetic parts in the signal path where you've got a steel nut on the binding post, the whole signal is passing through that piece of steel, that's going to negatively affect the sound. The woofer looks exactly the same as the one in the previous RP-600. I know the marketing department may have gotten a hold of it and made some changes in the marketing, but the woofer looks exactly the same. The tweeter supposedly may have something done to it. I don't know. The crossover definitely is different. If we look at the crossover in there, I don't know if you can really see it. We took some nice pictures of it. I'll have some pictures flashed up there. Before they had a iron core inductor on the woofer with a electrolytic capacitor, which, boo, worst you can get. Now it looks like they've got the same iron core inductor, but a polyester film cap on the woofer circuit. There's a couple of small caps that could be tweeter circuit caps, and there's some small air core inductors, which may also be in the tweeter circuit, or it could be a third order on the woofer. I don't know. Haven't torn into this thing yet. But there are no electrolytic caps, so a little bit better step up there. The same sandcast resistors, and it's still very much your cheap budget level parts. So a lot of what you're going to hear in this speaker is still going to be very similar to what the old one was. It's going to be very held back by the quality of the parts. Parts quality matters, and we're going to take an opportunity with this one to demonstrate just how much those parts quality do matter. But before we get any further, I want to look at what they did with this one versus the older model. So we've got measurements of both of them, and we're going to let you guys check these out and see where it was and now where it is. So let's first look at the on-axis frequency response, and you'll see that there was a dip in the old one, the old 600 RP or RP-600M. Right at the crossover point, you can see a hole there. In the new one, you don't see a hole there, but you still see some imbalance. Same with the old one. The tweeter level was about 2 dB hotter than the woofer level. We've got the same thing going on here. We've got the Tweeter level about 2 dB hotter than the woofer level. And I know they advertise these things as 94 dB sensitivity. I can't understand why in the world they would do that. They're nowhere near a 1 watt, 1 meter of 94 dB sensitivity. The woofer's response is right at 89. And the tweeter's response averages about 91. So it definitely has that in-your-face brightness that Klipsch is known for. They always voice the tweeters a lot hotter than the rest of the speaker, but that's the way it is. If we look at the vertical off-axis responses, look at the old version, you'll notice that as you moved up vertically, it dropped out pretty significantly. And on this one, as you move up vertically, you'll notice it's not changing as much. It's maintaining a better response vertically by far than the older one was. Horizontal off-axis is dropping off about the same on the older version as it is on the newer version, but because the newer one doesn't have that hole in response, it's a smoother response, it drops off a little more evenly. Let's look, I should have did this one already. Let's look at the crossover responses of both of them. You'll see in the original how the drivers are not summing very well. I'd say they're like 70 or 80% out of phase, whereas now they're a lot more in phase. The tweeter is being forced to play a lot lower, and it's held flatter longer, and the woofer's made to reach out there a little further, so they're actually overlapping each other more naturally than they were before, where they just weren't really reaching each other. So in some areas, it's definitely better. If we look at the spectral decays, we'll notice it had a pretty clean spectral decay before. It's got a pretty clean spectral decay now. There is a little bit of a lumped up area right at the middle, I'll say around 700 or 800 hertz there in the woofer's response, where you see the output drop down and then come back up. That could be indicative of the fact that there's not enough insulation in the box, and some of that is reflecting and coming back out and re-exciting the cone. That's why you see a little bit there in the spectral decay. If we look at the impedance curves, you'll see originally the impedance was unbalanced, and you see exactly the same thing with this one, where you see the tweeter has a much higher impedance than the woofer. The woofer's a 4 ohm woofer, and the tweeter was much higher impedance. That impedance mismatch causes amplifiers to see the loads differently at different frequencies, so you're not going to get consistent output. When we did an upgrade on the original RP-600, we adjusted the tweeter level in such a way where it was more like an L pad, and we brought the impedance down a little more. It was a little more balanced. We'll try to do the same thing with this one. Minimum impedance dropped to 3.9 ohms, and also if you look at the impedance curve, right there at the tuning frequency of this port, you'll see there's a resonance there, and then right below that, you'll see another little resonance, see another little hump there. Some of that, again, could be the fact that they're not putting enough insulation in the box to control that stuff, so you've got energy reflecting back and forth in the box. The one in the port, though, could actually be a port resonance. I'll look a little further into that and see what happens there. It is the old flared port, very similar to what was used originally in the first version. And so that's kind of it as far as comparing the old versus the new. They made some improvements. Like I said, they've probably been watching my videos and hearing me kind of hammer on them for the fact that the drivers aren't even in phase very well. So they got that part, but they're still trying to produce it to a price point, and it's still a budget level price point. So they're not putting any money into the parts quality or anything like that. So don't think you're going to get a really high-end speaker by buying this. You're still getting a metal cone woofer, and you know they have their own characteristic sound. And the same with that tweeter. You're going to get that in-your-face tweeter sound. Anybody that listens to these and says anything different than that, maybe he's not really listening to them. The tweeter's definitely a couple of dB louder than the woofer. And those parts quality that are in this thing is definitely a huge holdback. So what we're going to do with this thing. Klipsch already sent these out to a bunch of reviewers. Some of the online guys are already throwing up some information and first impressions on them. My buddy Ron Bernay has got a pair. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do something that I really don't like doing. We're going to do some sound clips of the new RP-600M Model 2. And we're going to let you hear that compared to just a pair of our XLS Encores. And The reason I don't like sound clips is because you only really hear about 20% of the differences that is brought to the table. What I mean is you're going to hear differences in tonality and detail levels, but you're not going to hear the differences that we hear here in the audio system, where we hear differences in the layering of the soundstage. We hear differences in the size of the soundstage and where things are within the soundstage, and maybe even how far left and right and depth and width. And we hear all that when we're listening to the speakers here. When we record that sound clip and you play it back on your headphones or on your desktop system, you don't get any of those things. You just hear the differences in tonality and detail levels and things like that. So I don't like doing it, but we're going to do it. We're going to show you just where a base level model like this is compared to just one of our average products, so that you can see how big a disparity there really is there. And then we're going to design a full upgrade for this model. We're going to put higher quality parts in it, and we're going to show you the after measurements of what we did, and then we're going to let you hear sound clips of the new version compared to the old version. And again, it should be quite dramatic. The parts quality really matters. I know there's a lot of those YouTube warrior, or I shouldn't say YouTube, keyboard warriors out there that think they know everything about audio, and they're going to tell you all that stuff, snake oil, and those parts quality don't matter. All that stuff, it's all ignorance. We're going to let you hear that, even though through the sound clips you're only going to hear about 20% of those differences. It's a significant difference that you can hear even on the sound clip. So we're going to do that for you so you can hear it and you can know how much difference this stuff brings to the table. So hang in there. We got a lot of work to do here with this stuff. I got to set it up, measure it, test it, and design something new for it. I also have quite a few other speakers in line right now, and I'm trying to get those knocked out in the order that they came in. And we'll try to have some fun with all that stuff. So hang on, and this, I think, should be an interesting one. Hopefully it's a good learning opportunity for you guys, learning process to learn more about what parts quality does, what it brings to the table, and if it's worth it or not. Because sometimes just a small upgrade is a significant improvement. It can be the difference between a speaker being blah and very enjoyable to listen to. So hang in there, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel already, please go down there and hit the subscribe button so you can be notified of when we have new videos dropping, because we definitely have some new ones coming that you're going to want to see. We'll see you in the next one.